I came out late by today's standards. I was 24 when I told a handful of friends who weren't at all surprised. And I was 25 when I told my dad on a road trip and he nearly crashed the car. He wasn't angry, I think he was worried. I don't think he ever thought of being gay as a legitimate life, or he thought it was more like a choice. And he wanted to calmly talk me down from the ledge. If you go too far with it, it'll be hard to come back. I think growing up, I didn't really know whether or not I was gay. I just was a kid, but then also we weren't exposed to anything. We lived on the Central Coast. We grew up going to church and I was homeschooled by a Christian education system. So that was my whole world and I loved it. As I got older, I'd eventually start preaching. After I finished school, I went to the Bible college and I was on my way to becoming a pastor. I helped start a church in London and it seemed like my life was on a pretty straightforward course, but it came a little unstuck. The part where I both did and didn't know that I was gay was becoming clearer. And if I wanted to continue being a part of this world, it meant that I'd have to keep that part of me a secret. Our church didn't really have a public stance on homosexuality, but it definitely had a stance on sexuality. They'd say things like, hate the sin and love the sinner. And the fact that I wanted to sleep with men was the sin and I was the sinner. It eventually became a very heavy burden and I couldn't really wrap my head around how to separate the desire from who I am. Being gay is more than just wanting to have sex with someone of the same sex. It's a whole sensibility. It's intimacy, romance, attraction, connectedness. It's not just sex. It's who I am. It's not just who I'm having sex with. It's so much bigger than sex. And I think that's intimidating to people. They're more comfortable with us just having sex than with us kissing on the street or holding hands, or the idea of a lesbian couple raising a child and having a complete family unit. That is more threatening than the bonking, you know? And I think that's something that you can feel and experience in a queer partying space, is that it's so much more than just sex. It's this huge melting pot of people expressing themselves and liberating themselves and finding themselves in this space where strangers can wordlessly exchange their joy, and somewhere that your gender, race, class, sexuality and body type, they can be left at the door and you can become part of this perfect blend of horny and wholesome vibrancy. You can see things on a dance floor that you don't see in normal life. People expressing themselves and liberating each other. You get swept up in the energy of it all and you find yourself little by little letting go. Things have happened on dance floors that have given me the courage to be more exactly like myself, embrace the weird bits and become more accepting of other people. That part of me that I was ashamed of and needed to hide in one world would become the key that I needed to unlock another world. And with that sense and idea of this dance floor utopia, I started DJing and running parties with my friend. I didn't know anything about music and it was truly a mess. I could only play one song after the other and I would always stuff up the transitions, and every time there was like two songs coming to need to be played back to back, I'd have to pick up the microphone and yell an affirmation over the top of it so that no one knew how badly it was going back there. I'd be going, "Oh love, no shame, you are beautiful," and just hoping that no one noticed how terrible I was as a DJ. One time I played Gloria Estefan's Conga twice in a row, and that was a complete mistake. So I decided to play it a third time, so it seemed more like it was a choice. I think people would look up and see me and just go, "How the hell are you getting away with this?" It was bad, but I think watching someone get away with something, it was like the Buzz Lightyear, he's not flying, he's falling with style. That was my approach to DJing. People would be dancing up on the bars and taking their tops off and dancing on chairs, and it was wild. And I think people knew that it would feel good to participate in this big hot mess. And that's the idea, to make an environment that people want to participate in. When we were DJing, we used to wear something that was as masculine as it was feminine. And it was never drag, it was always just ourselves, but this saturated version. And I loved that experience of being smack bang in the middle of being a man and a woman and still myself. And it was something that started as a costume, but it became something that I wanted for myself in my day-to-day. I was leaving the house one day in a skirt and a blouse, and someone asked me if I was going to a party or if I was performing, if it was a costume. And I got really weird about it because I realized that what I was wearing wasn't for anyone else's eyes. It was for me, because this halfway point is who I am. I'm neither male nor female. I'm just a Johnny getting around the world. For my Christmas present one year, I asked everyone to give me them, they pronouns. That's something that can confuse a lot of people. They don't get it, but I try to explain it simply. I'm just opting out of manhood. That's all that it is. I love the men in my life, but there are times when I've felt the least like myself. That's when I'm trying to be a man. I'm hiding myself in blue jeans or a navy tee with a clean cut hair, you know, it's so good, you know. I couldn't do that anymore, live up to that thing. I think a lot of gay men are made to feel like they're failed men, and so sometimes can really lean into masculine tropes that straight guys don't seem to have to worry about as much. It's all pretty boring, but bless you, honey, if that's your thing, go for it, you know? Who am I to tell you what to do? And I'm not a woman either. I'm not particularly feminine, but that spirit lives in me, and I feel that deeply. I never want to take a woman's place, so I opted out of that too. I'm not a third gender, I just don't observe the rules of gender. And it's interesting, people's responses to that as well, that it's a nice feeling that other people have found a bit more courage to be themselves, because I found some courage to be myself off of someone who had the courage to be themselves. And that exchange is a big part of the queer community, that we're constantly showing each other that you can be anything you want to be, literally anything that you want to be. I love it.